sort of pleased that Captain Gopinath has agreed to come and share his thoughts and experience with us. I had the opportunity to interview him last year at the Thai Entrepreneurial Summit, and it was one of the hits of the conference. And I must admit, he agreed to do this at pretty much very short notice. Last week, I don't think he was expecting to be here. I sent him a note. He immediately responded. So Gopi, thank you very much, for doing this for us. So without much ado, I'm going to just ask Captain Gopinath to say a few initial comments. And then, as I said, this is your meeting. Feel free to ask any questions, and I leave him to answer, whichever questions. But I will start with one question so that I can get him going. Last year I asked him, because when this conference started in 2006, our keynote speaker at that time on the first evening was none other than Vijay Mallya. And there was a question from the audience, and the question from the audience to Vijay was, what do you think about these low-cost airlines which have started? And Vijay at that time said that he was not in the cattle carrying business. And I asked this question of Captain Gopi last time as well, and he responded. So with that provocative comment, Gopi, it's all yours.
Thanks, friends. Nice to be with you. I think today the challenge for all of us who want to enter business in India, and also is also a great gift that we have, is that India is today all gates and all opportunities. And entrepreneurs create wealth. Entrepreneurs destabilize the status quo. And I think the reason why I said it is opportunity is that when a successful entrepreneur becomes successful, at the very height of his success, generally the seed of decline is sown. So for new entrepreneurs, is always an opportunity to destabilize a successful entrepreneur, because at the very height of his success, his vision becomes opaque. The problem is that when you have too much of money and resources at your disposal, it creates an opaque vision. And the successful businessman or the successful entrepreneur who became successful generally because of lack of resources and his risk-taking ability stops taking risks, and he doesn't realize that his vision is opaque. He's like a jaundiced man. And therefore, it is a good opportunity for budding entrepreneurs to take the plunge and create. Because what we need in India today is to create jobs. And we need to create jobs not in Bombay and Delhi. We need to create jobs in the other India. And that's where the resources are. That's where our entrepreneurial spirit is. That's where India's energy is. And all these billion people, they are not poor people. They are poor consumers. So when you look at them as hungry people, but as poor, hungry consumers, then the whole vision of India will change. And that's the reason when someone said, whether it is a cattle class or you look down with condescension, and I think it is to our peril. I said the other day that if Rahul Bajaj wants to hire a helicopter or buy a Benz car or go to the Oberoi, he has to sell scooters to millions of common people. So you can't own an aircraft if millions of people don't consume your products. So therefore, you need that ecosystem. And that ecosystem is very, very vibrant at the bottom of the pyramid rather than at the top of the pyramid. So this is a great opportunity for us to create jobs, because when you look at a billion people who are hungry and want to consume, then it is all about having a low-cost advantage. And low cost is not just low cost culture. Low cost is all about innovation, is all about efficiency, it is all about positioning yourself in the inclusive model. How do you build a business for the large teeming multitude, whether it's in soap or it's in air tickets? That will get you thinking how to be innovative, because low cost is all about innovation. Innovation just not in, like in the airline business, the biggest innovation was in the distribution of tickets, which came because of IT. A lot of things are possible because of IT, but IT is only an enabler. So we need to look at India, not just in Bombay, Delhi. If you want to build a stable society, in our own interest, out of selfishness, you have to make all these other people consumers and make the rest of India participate in this economic growth.
Thank you for those opening comments. I'm going to, as I said, this is an interactive session. Feel free, when you put your hand up, I will make sure that a mic, gets to you. Chirag, I'll give you first opportunity. Can we have a mic here, please? Chirag, why don't you use this?
I'm Chirag Mehta from Thai Ahmedabad. You came across a very interesting topic of vision being opaque at the higher level. Can you throw some more light or explain what it is, or kind of?
I think it is, it's very commonly said, and it is very true, it is not resources, but being resourceful. And Napoleon said, it is a general principle of war that it is not always cannons that win you wars, it is lightning speed. So what happens is that when you have too much of resources, I think you see it with your own children, and you see it in your own life, that when you have excessive resource at your command, then it creates complacency, unbeknown to you. It creates, you became successful in the first place because you took risks. And then once you become successful, you want to preserve that success. You want to put a nest egg. You want to sort of save all the riches you have made. So you stop taking risks. Very inherently, very organically, you stop taking risks. So for the established player, it is very difficult to create for himself the challenge of want. So that's the reason I said for a new generation entrepreneur, and that's how it's always been, whether it's in the IT world or in any other world, for the new generation entrepreneur, he's lucky that, while you may not have resources, you are more resourceful than the person who has resources. Okay. So in my own case, I remember when I started Deccan without any money, and it happened because, since there was no money, all the time, everybody in the company had this infectious zeal to create, you have to get the entire company, every person in the company to buy the dream. When everyone buys the dream, it happens. And in the next venture, when I had resources, I found that it was difficult to create that as much as in the first case.
Thank you.
I just want to make one announcement, which I should have done. My apologies. The Gurukul sessions at the Thai Entrepreneurial Summit this year are exclusive to UTV for electronic media, because they are recording this, and, we'll be showing those. A gentleman there? Yeah.
Hello. It's generally perceived that branding is very expensive. So how do you look at low-cost products and branding together?
Just going by our own example, in Deccan, I think our biggest challenge was how do you get the company known across the country? I think today, especially in India, since you have such a fractured media, if you say, just let's say NDTV is the largest channel, but actually that was only about 1 or 2%, because only 10% look at English channels of this country. In that 10%, you've got 10 channels, so each of them share 1 or 2%. So how do you grab the eyeball, and how do you grab the attention of the country is the biggest challenge for all entrepreneurs. Like David Ogilvy said that, if you see a product, you must want to buy it, right? Anything else is useless. So the challenge is then, how do you get the whole country to learn about you without spending the kind of money that you will not have? And the best way of doing it is through the media. If you can understand very intuitively what makes a story, just like a salesman is judged by the sales he brings in, how is a newspaper judging its reporters? By the stories that they bring in. They had to be first, and they had to be a bit sensational. So you don't have to spend, because typically what happens is when you have a brand launch, you have it in a 5-star hotel, then the public relations company tells you that you have to give gifts to the journalist. You're actually insulting the journalist because you're trying to say that you can buy him off. Though of course, an odd guy may come and have a whiskey and get a gift, but actually you will get a story if you recognize there is a story value in your enterprise. And that should come intuitively to you. I'll just give 1 or 2 examples. When one villager came to me long ago in my company and said he wanted to hire a helicopter. So I went to see him, and I was not able to find out who this guy was. So I went back, and again my front office said, "Sir, the villager is waiting to meet you." So I went down and to the reception lounge, and there was I was not able to see this guy. And there were a lot of people dressed like you, and there was one guy in a pajama. He was like a Tonga driver, standing in a corner, and he said he's the guy who wants to hire the helicopter. So then I spoke to him, took him to my room, and he said that his grandfather had a wedding for his mother on an elephant, and now he wants to have a wedding for his sister because there were no elephants available around. He was a poor guy, but he wanted to have a wedding for his sister on a helicopter. So I said, how much can you pay? And he said, can you tell me how much it is? So I just, felt, that I must give him 50% discount, which was my cost. So instead of charging 1 lakh rupees an hour, I said, I'll charge you 50,000 rupees. And then he said, fine. And then I thought it's a great story, having a wedding on a helicopter in a village. So I just called NDTV and Star News, and I told them this is a great story. So for next 24 hours, NDTV and Star News covered that wedding on the helicopter. They had a nikah ceremony. It came for 24 hours. So you need to figure out what makes a story. When I said a 1 rupee ticket, it completely caught the country's imagination. And every newspaper wrote about it, and it was a word of mouth. And when we opened the tickets, we had a 1 mile long queue. There were rich people as well as poor people who came at 5 o'clock in the morning to buy these tickets. So that 1 rupee ticket, triggered the imagination. It was not a gimmick. Then NDTV called up and said, is it a gimmick? We said, no. I said, these are the people who have bought it. So then they called up those people and put them on an interview again. So you had to find out what is it that you can do differently, what is it that you are doing differently, and get the media to write about your venture. And as all of us know, it's been said many times, when the media writes about it rather than your own advertisement, this is not to say you can escape advertising, but the product will become known. And also when I took a decision, I will link the non-tier, non-metro to the metro. I made sure out of the 67 cities, we went to 37 cities, first-time cities, like Jabalpur, like Kulu, Dharamshala, Bellary, Hubli, Pathankot, all these small towns, Kolhapur. I went to every city myself for the launch, and I just called the minister so that we get free publicity. So I never spent more than 500 rupees to 1,000 rupees on each of my launches, because next day, the opening day, we took the journalists free because anyway it was a launch, and when you go to a town like Kolhapur, you know, you don't need advertisement. The people will advertise it for you.
You got the mic. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I would like to ask you one question. How does it feel to start a venture and right from an idea and then let someone run the venture?
No, then you are a venture capitalist, not a entrepreneur. If you are putting money in somebody's idea. I mean, it was Emerson who said, you know, from knowing to doing, you know, it's not enough to know. You know, it's not enough to dream. You know, you have to begin it. You know, so knowing to doing, you know, there can't be a gap. You know, if you don't do the next part, you may have everything, but you know, you lack everything. Not doing, but knowing is of no use. So you have to, the idea must become one with you. In a very Vedantic way, you can't have a dualism. You know, you are separate and the idea is separate. When the idea and you become one, you know, then you don't see obstacles, you only see the light. You know, all the obstacles will give way because you are just seeing the light. You are not seeing the obstacles. So you have to burn with that. You know, it has to happen. You can't simulate it. You know, you can't go and try to pretend that, you know, you are very passionate about it. You know, you become one with the venture.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Harish Tibrewala from Social Wavelength. My question is, sir, when you started Deccan Aviation, in your vision, did you have like a definite target saying, I want to make this big a business in so many years? Or did it just keep on happening and unfolding itself as you went along?
You know, like someone said, you know, vision is the art of seeing the invisible, right? It is, you're seeing it, others are not seeing it. So that's the problem you always have as an entrepreneur. So you got to believe that. You know, you feel it here. And a vision should not be, I want to become the largest airline in the country, or I want to become, you know, $1 billion in market cap. I mean, that's not a vision. Vision must be something which you can never reach in your lifetime, but you are realizing it every day. For me, when I was looking at India as a large country with a vast population which was beginning to buy a lot of things. Even if you go to your taluk headquarters, you could find people buying a refrigerator and keeping it in the drawing room because they want to show off to the next person. They were buying a lot of things, but they're not buying air tickets. And for me, the vision was that every Indian must fly. And I truly believe that is going to happen in the next 15, 20, 30 years. So I know one gentleman, you know, from Hyderabad came to me and said when he was getting a haircut, the barber told him that, you know, the Barbers Association pooled money and they all went to Bombay for a day. There was a story in Kolhapur where, you know, the beggars, you know, got together and sent one beggar. So, I mean, these are real stories. And I know a lot of people, of course, who are IT savvy who got these tickets, 1 rupee ticket, but I know a lot of people who got these 1 rupee, 500 rupee tickets. So every day, you know, someone or the other was traveling who could never ever afford to travel. So you realize a dream every day. And then the wealth is a consequence. Becoming the largest is a consequence. So you have to bring about a change. You got to, and your ability to bring about the change will get you the venture capital. Your ability to create the change will give you the personal satisfaction and make it happen.
Good afternoon, sir. Myself Ankesh. I am from Thai Hubli. Basically, my question to you is like, you told about dreams, your passion to start Deccan Aviation. And when it was a time to really explore the aviation industry, you suddenly sold your business to Kingfisher, sir. What was the, like, I just want to know.
The logic behind that madness. Okay. You know, as you know, when I was running Deccan, I'm a first generation entrepreneur. I realized that I was getting into a business without any money, which was the most capital intensive business. As you know, an Airbus costs 200 crores. An ATR costs 75 crores. So even if you get 200 crores venture capital, you can only buy one Airbus. But I said I must build an airline with the 200 crores that I received from venture capital. And when you want to build an airline, you know, it consumes a lot of cash. So you had to dilute yourself. So I deployed 45 aircrafts in 45 months, one a month. every month. And that was unheard of anywhere in the world. And in 4 years, we became the largest airline in India in terms of network. We were going to 70 cities every day, flying about 8 million passengers a year. All that was possible because I was not looking at controlling my own personal stake. I was like a madman. I was possessed. I was just trying to create the change. And I knew that it was not possible because of the cartel that existed before I started. And I knew that that cartel is not going to allow me to take my own time to build the airline. So that's how I diluted myself. But at the end of 4 years, I realized the Delhi airport, the Bombay airport, the Bangalore airport was so congested. Every aircraft of mine was not able to enter, was not getting airport space. The shortage of pilots, the shortage of engineers. And I thought, in one AGM, one shareholder asked me, he says, Captain, we have followed you like the Pied Piper. When are we going to make some return on my investment? And when my issue opened the last time, the stock market crashed on the day my issue opened. And so none of the mutual funds who were supposed to invested. Then I picked up the phone and called up the chairman of SBI, the LIC, and the New India Assurance, what I should put money. And I said, look, nothing has changed except the stock markets. So you should not go back at this point, and I'll not let you down. So they all put in their 5 crores, 10 crores, 15 crores, and we got our 400 crores. And one thing was running through my mind that, I must not let down the investors. And maybe I would have pulled it off, but I thought it was a risk not worth taking. And the market cap of Deccan by itself, before it merged with Kingfisher, reached almost $1 billion after the announcement. And it was a little less than $1 billion before the announcement. And I had very big names who were talking to me, who were chasing me to put money. As you know, nobody has raised money in aviation after I raised money, either in the private equity or in the public issue. And everybody was talking to me to put money because we are the largest airline in the country. And so I thought it was good for the investors, and I also thought it would be good for the company. Though of course there's some debate whether I should have sold it to Vijay Mallya rather than to somebody else, because Vijay Mallya changed the model a little bit. But I think, as all of us know now, it is not important whether I am running the airline. 75% of all aircrafts, both in Kingfisher and Jet Airways, are now being converted to the low-cost model. So my aim and dream was to, on the one hand, to build what I set out to build and to give return to my investors. And all the investors, one investor invested 1 crore and made 145 crores. Another invested $5 million and made $45 million. And a lot of retail investors made money. And so that was one thing which was bothering me. And I thought, when I was at the helm of affairs, I must give the option to the investors to cash out.
Before you ask the question, can I ask for some questions from ladies? Because I'll give preference. We know all the men are asking the questions. Are there any ladies? You next. After that, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Tarun Singh. I just wanted to ask whether, after the experience that you had in aviation industry, are you going to re-enter the industry again?
I'm already in it. I don't even know when I started doing it. As you know, I just launched last month a nationwide air cargo and logistics company. It's not just freight, though it's the most critical. I have started with 11 aircrafts. 7 dedicated freighter aircrafts are flying now. But we also have nationwide trucking and nationwide pickup and delivery, and it's an end-to-end air logistics company which is multimodal.
The lady there.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Sonal Devangan from Simar, Chhattisgarh. My question to you, sir, everything needs a motivational factor. And to build such a big business, what was the driving force in you that keeps you on going?
No, I think I said it before. I think it was true yesterday, it is true today, it will be true tomorrow. Your passion and your commitment is more, and your energy and enthusiasm. I don't think anything great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm. I think that is more important than capital. Like someone asked in the vision, you may not have a vision to build the biggest company from day one, but you know, you have to have the vision to make a change, to make a difference in whichever sector you're in. Because today, there's no way you can enter if you're not in a position to, you know, destabilize the status quo. So you have to be different, and you know, there are opportunities. You know, like someone said, I think it's Thoreau who said, if you build a better mousetrap, and even if you're in the forest, you know, the people will, you know, beat a trail to your house in the forest. You know, other day I was with MTR, you know, whom I called for catering to my house for a concert, and that MTR, that I was just talking to him. You know, I have this habit of engaging them in conversation to find out. He was a very low-level manager, and he told me MTR comes to Bombay for catering. Can you imagine? Bombay has probably the largest number of both Udupi restaurants and the other bars. With 155 people, they come by train to Bombay to do catering. And he said they bring their own urad dal from there, because the taste is different in the idli if the urad dal is bought here. So it doesn't have to be the largest restaurant chain in India, but MTR is like Lal Bagh. You know, a visit to Bangalore is incomplete without that. So they have been in that for the last 50 years, and so even in a business as ancient as a restaurant business, you can always be different and, you know, and make it. But I think what characterizes everybody, so that's the reason I don't have any answer to each of these businesses. What is the answer? But the answer is that you have to be committed. You can't be cynical. You know, you can't, you know, because the only certainty in this world is that everything is uncertain. So what is certain is opportunity, and what is uncertain is security. So there's no security now, there's only opportunity.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
My name is Ravi Shankar. This is transforming a business idea into actuality. So I want to understand what are the difficulties that you really faced when you had a business model, business idea, and how it got transformed on the ground, and what has been the deviation in terms of the Excel sheet modeling of a business and on the ground, and how did you manage that? Thank you.
You know, once long ago, when I was in my farm, I had an Enfield motorcycle. So I had left the army, I had 6,000 rupees in my pocket, and I was living in a tent in a farm, which I had to create. It was a barren place. You know, we had to walk 6 miles to get there. I was living in a tent, and I had a motorcycle. And I used to go to Hassan, which is a district headquarters nearest, by my motorcycle to get my motorcycle repaired. And somewhere 1 or 2 years into my farming days, when I got into debt, like all farmers got into debt, and I was living hand to mouth, literally. When I went to Hassan to get my bike repaired, it was about 7 o'clock in the evening. The dealership was closed. And so I asked the neighbors what happened to this guy. They said that, you know, he has closed and he has gone home and he's not coming back, some problems, and he wound up. Then, you know, a thought came to my mind, crossed my mind. Hassan, you know, and Chikmagalur and Coorg, the 3 districts, and Hassan was the headquarters. And in those days, there were only 2 motorcycle companies in India. Rajdoot was still not there. Only 2 motorcycle companies, Enfield, Royal Enfield, Enfield India, and Java. And all the motorcycles would come to Hassan. I said, where will my motorcycle go for repairs? Where will I buy with the parts? So somebody needs to be there in his place. So instead of taking a bus back to my farm, which was at about 8:30, 9 o'clock, I said, you know, maybe I should take a dealership, because anyway my farm was not doing very well. So I took a bus, a night bus to Chennai, which was the Enfield headquarters, and went straight to Chennai and reached there at 6 o'clock in the morning and went to the Enfield headquarters. And I said, look, I found that your dealership is closed. I want an Enfield dealership for Hassan district and the neighboring districts. And he said, look, you're an ex-army officer, you're a farmer, but you have no, you know, business experience, because normally people who are in these kind of dealerships are Marwadis, Gujaratis, the local Chettiars. And I said, look, I got one thing which probably other people may not have. He said, what is it? He said, look, I've been a customer for 2 years, and I know what customers want. So he said, here you have the dealership. But I did not have any money in my account, so I never asked. Then when I started my, my Enfield motorcycle dealership, or when I started my helicopter company, or my airline, how much does it cost to set up an airline business? Because if I had asked that, probably there would have been no airline. So I just came back and then, I raised money and I set up the dealership. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not to say don't analyze. It's not to say not to plan. Planning is everything. At some point, planning is everything. The plan itself is nothing, as General Eisenhower said. But I think that there's a point beyond which analysis cannot go. And then, you have to rely on your gut feeling. You have to rely on your instinct. You have to rely on that spontaneous intuition. And that is very, 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 very important. If you lack that, I think, you have to be able to listen to that and follow that. And follow that intuition, because most of us give up. Most of us give up either from starting it, or after starting it, we give up because we don't believe our own intuition. So we're going to have the courage to follow that.
We're going to allow Captain Gopinath has got to actually leave. So I'm going to take 2 more questions. Is that okay? Gopinath,
Yeah.
there's one
There's a lady
question
here
there.
who want to do.
And then the lady.
Yeah.
Question there and then the lady.
Good afternoon, Captain. I'm here.
Yeah, right.
Captain, I'm from the service industry, and one question is, with so many fluctuations in prices, especially in the service industry, how do we maintain costs?
I was yesterday talking to somebody who was into low-cost housing, and I also was talking to Jerry Rao here. Controlling costs, typically what comes to our mind is in a very visible way, instead of, doing it with 1,000 rupees, do it with 800 rupees. That's, of course, is important. One is, cost cutting is culture. I said this before. I used to send my car, when I could afford a car, to pick up my father, who was, who was in a different part of Bangalore. But he would send the car back and he would come by bus and then walk to my house. That is the culture, in the sense that you don't want to waste an unnecessary resource. But in businesses which are positioning themselves for this large Indian market, and I think especially those who want to position themselves to capture this great Indian middle class and the lower middle class, cost cutting has to come from innovation. And it has to come from efficiency. And when I say innovation, you have got to think differently as to how, whatever you're doing, how do I do it differently to bring down the cost? And in the airline industry, just to give an example, when we were not able to break the cartel of the travel agents, I'm not against the travel agents, but when the travel agents control the inventory. As you know, all the airlines are prisoners to travel agents, the network providers like SITAs, and the reservation providers like SEBA. And I would do the same if I were in the case. They control the inventory and they control the airlines. And of course, some of it is not my innovation, some of it was the innovation of Southwest and Ryanair. So in India, it was not possible because they said only 1% in India use internet. Only 1% in India use credit card. How are you going to sell your tickets to the common man without the travel agents? So I told my people, I don't care. We are not going to print the tickets, And like Hannibal said, he said, you find a way, and if none exists, you make one. And as entrepreneurs, you have to make a way. If you can't find a way, you make one. And somebody in my company came and said, look, if you don't have an internet, we will put the ticket in a place where there's internet. Petrol gas stations have internet. So we converted 1,000 petrol gas stations to internet. And one day the Postmaster General of India wrote me a letter saying that, look, The Deccan model and the Indian Post model are same. We have got 10,000 post offices with internet connectivity. So we converted, 500 post offices in Karnataka to a Deccan chaos. So we got free branding, and we told that person, you collect 200 rupees from the customer and sell the a Deccan tickets. So we had 7,000 points of sale at the end of 3 years, physical points of sale other than internet. But this different distribution brings down the cost of an airline by 20%. So it's not just hard sweating labor of bringing down costs, which is important. Also innovation. Innovation in one stroke can bring down your costs, and that's what you have to do. Of course, I'm not saying the golden rule is there are no golden rules. So what applied to Deccan may not apply to you. So you have to beat your own trail. You have to beat your own path. You have to innovate. So it is invention and courage all the time.
Okay, I actually raised my hand when Sridhar said he wanted more women asking questions. But so, Captain Gopi, I have a two-part question. One is, this entrepreneurship is a rite of passage, and I believe it fundamentally actually changes the person who walks through that path. Would you share with us how has this fundamentally changed you as a person? What has changed you in being an entrepreneur? And then now, second time around, when aviation was a green field, and when you were a new entrepreneur, you shared with us what choices you made. But now, second time around in logistics, which is not necessarily a green field, and now you are known, you are successful. What now changes you as a second time entrepreneur?
The first part is that, as an entrepreneur, if you're a true entrepreneur, you have to be humble all the time. I think arrogance is the biggest pitfall. And like Walt Disney said, I think it is important to have a good, hard failure early in life. It teaches you a lot of lessons. And I think the difference is that between saying I failed and I'm a failure. If you say I'm a failure, that means you have given up. If you say I failed, it's like Edison said, it's not that I failed 10,000 times, because he did 10,000 experiments to find the incandescent bulb. He said I found 10,000 ways in which it did not work. So if you are a true entrepreneur, of course we need managers, we need politicians, we need farmers. So everybody can't be an entrepreneur, but the ones who are truly entrepreneurs, first they have to believe in themselves, and then that every failure is actually a learning. It is a stepping stone, believe you me, for doing better the next time. I do not want to tell the whole story of my life. It is coming out in my book next month, where the various things that I did in the early days of my farming, because I did not want to give up farming for the first 10 years. I'd taken a vow that I'll make farming a success, and farming was not becoming successful. So I did various businesses. And then eventually I started the helicopter company, and then the airline, and now the logistics. And coming to the next part of the question, I don't know if I answered it. I don't not directly answer questions because I don't have any answers. I basically narrate. The next time, when I started the helicopter company and the airline, I started it in the worst recession of the aviation industry. The helicopter company, when I started, there were no helicopters in India. And the reason I started it was my colleague, Captain Sam, was not getting a job. And I was, I'd come back from China with a delegation of farmers, and I was, raring to go to start something, because I sensed very intuitively it was a new India. Obviously, you can't set up a business in the old communist China or the old India where everything was controlled. Only certain people who were privileged could set up businesses. And I think the businessmen were more responsible for this than the politicians, because they ensured others don't get in. But I think we are fortunate today that we are in a country where we have a great democracy, great judiciary, great press, and all these things inform me that with China embracing capitalism, the Russian state having collapsed, with the regional politics in spite of its ugliness, I somehow felt that there's only one caste, which is the consumer caste in this country. They are voting on communal lines and caste lines, but they're removing governments as consumers, and a lot of policies are getting made by consumers regardless of the caste. And I sense that this is a great opportunity for us to set up businesses. So I set up my helicopter company when there was not a single helicopter company in the country for the public space. We had helicopters of the big old names for themselves or for political patronage. So I said there's no competition for me. No, where I could set up a helicopter company, and it is as easy to get a helicopter like getting a taxi. Today, not then. In those days, even taxis were not available. And the airline I started after September 11, but I was not looking at Europe, I was not looking at India. As I said, I'm saying it in modesty to others, not in some of arrogance, that it is your ability to see the invisible. I was looking at the 99% who are not traveling by air, and the people who wanted to fund me that time said, look, only 1% is traveling. Where is the market? So I put whatever I had and started the airline. I borrowed 5 crores and started with 1 aircraft. And again now the logistics venture, I was doing it before I knew it, because I found there was a huge vacant space here. In fact, this space is totally vacant. It is zero. We have over 6 cargo aircrafts, and China has 100. And of course, I'm not doing air cargo. I'm again connecting the interiors, the very bowels of this country, where we need supply chain logistics.
Gopi, do you have time for a couple more or one more? But before that, Vani, because of the things I could not recognize, Vani Kola happens to be the first entrepreneur I invested in, so welcome. And made money on. I'm going to take one last question at that gentleman from there. And that's the last question. Can you have a...
Hello, sir. Success is of course part of every entrepreneur, but majority of the times many entrepreneurs fail. Entrepreneurs are attached to their own ideas, but when will it be the time to draw a line and say to ourselves that boss, this business is not working and we should stop it? When should one entrepreneur draw a line so that
I think it's true for any other. Let's say if you're a violinist, you're a singer, you're a tennis player, at some point you're going to get a feeling, I can't become Vijay Amrutraj or Andre Agassi. And same thing if you're a singer, you must somewhere sense, I would rather sing for hobby and people call me to the house for dinner, or I'll become a music teacher rather than becoming Bhimsen Joshi. Right? I think it is the same for entrepreneurs. To realize I made a mistake. Let me not be pig-headed about it. But here I'm not asking you to give up entrepreneurship, which is a little different. I made a mistake. Let me cut my losses, close it. But that should not make you cynical. That should not make you depressed. That should not make you as though everything is lost. That should only say, okay, I learned something here. But let me be smart to get out of this and try again another day.
So what should be the key indications when we should go out of the business?
Oh, yeah. I think you have to figure it out for yourself.
Gopi,
It will be wrong for me to, because each case will be, like, I think Vani here also will probably endorse. Most people give up when they don't know how close to success they were. Infosys became successful. There are a lot of others who were just before Infosys who gave up. So, of course, it's a question of time, question of luck. All those things are there, but many people fail because they give up, the last minute.
Can I,
But I think you have to find
Gopi, I'm going to just presume to get 1 minute because we're going to end up with one lady to finish the session.
I'm always the last lady to ask the last question in the session. Okay, Captain, there's only one question I want to ask you. Give us one innovative strategy of yours which you used to beat competition? Because everybody was getting into low-cost airlines, right? Everybody was reducing their airfare.
Not when I started.
At least, okay, when you started. But then, give us one tip for how you beat the competition. What did you do? What was that?
I think, again, I'll answer by generic questions. See, when I started the airline, if some of you, if you look back in 2002, there were only 3 airlines: Jet Airways, Indian Airlines, and Sahara. And there was an unwritten cartel there. Because whatever was the price of Indian Airlines, Jet Airways was 100 rupees more than that. Sahara was another 50 rupees more than that. So at Bangalore, Delhi, in 2002, when oil price was 1/3 and salaries were 1/3, at Bangalore, Delhi was 12,000 rupees. So husband and wife and 2 kids, if they had to go to Delhi and come back, it was 100,000 rupees. And that's when I started the airline. So it was even unthinkable that you could give anything, even in those days, for something like, as against 12,000 for something like about 3,500, 4,000. Of course, I did not start the airline because I wanted to teach Jet Airways a lesson. I started the airline because I saw, I saw this huge country as customers. I never saw them as poor people. I saw them as poor consumers who are consuming everything but tickets. I said, it was never, should I start the airline? It was, how do I do it? How do I do it in India using the Indian mud and Indian genius? What do I do in India to make these people travel by air? And I always said in my company, don't compete with jet, compete with the trains. Because if you compete with jet, you'll only be cannibalizing each other's passengers. Because in 2002, only 0.5% of India traveled by air. So it will be the stupidest thing to do to take away the jet's passengers. So I said, how do I, as an entrepreneur, you have got to do one more thing other than building a product. You have to be in the forefront of changing the consumer behavior. You have to create a societal, galvanizing effect to make them change their habit of buying, and that's what the 1 rupee ticket did. So I think to go back, it is easy now in hindsight, but I think at that time when I was doing, there were 10 people who were coming to me every day and telling me, you must at least give water, you must put newspapers, at least you must give breakfast, all kind of things to make the airline costlier. And of course, that's when I said, you need to listen to that intuition and sometimes brutally drive it.
I'm going to call the session to an end. This is the second year in a row that I have actually had the opportunity to listen to Gopi, and I will tell you, every time I listen to him, I get new nuggets, of wisdom from him. Gopi, thank you very much for, at short notice, coming and sharing, your insights with us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. In fact, Gopi, I just want to give you a letter. There's nothing in it, but it just tells you that we have donated some money to a midday meal program in your name. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Give him the applause that he deserves.